Hello, everyone. You are live with the Pricing Lady. I'm Janine Liston and your hostess for this show. Welcome this morning. Today, I want to talk to you about a very important topic, and that is what I call the pricing flinch. Now, I know some of you, without knowing a whole lot more than that, know exactly what I'm talking about. So the pricing flinch is what happens for a lot of people when either they think about or customers actually do ask what it is they charge. And it's sometimes an internal reaction, and oftentimes it can also be an external reaction. And here's the thing about the pricing flinch. It is not helping you. It is actually hurting how successful you can be. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that you start taking concrete steps in order to do it better. That's what we're going to talk about today. So welcome to the show. If you're watching live, hello. Let me know. You can type something in the chat. And as I go through this today, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments down below, and I will do my best to address them before we end the show. And if I can't, then I will go ahead and answer them in the comments afterwards. So welcome, and today we're talking about the pricing flinch. So as I said, the flinch is what happens when, quite often when we're asked how much we charge, or sometimes it even can be if we're going to send an offer out to someone and we're hesitating and procrastinating sending it out the door. That is the flinch in action inside your body, your mind, influencing what you do. Now, what is important when it comes to the flinch? The flinch is happening because what you're expecting is a negative reaction from the customer. And those negative reactions come in all different formats. So let's look at a few examples so that you start to understand what I'm talking about. First of all, the flinch happens when you're unsure if your prices are right. So you've guessed, you haven't really fully thought through why your price is what it is, and you feel really unsure about it. So you're putting it out there, but you're so unsure that you kind of have this like question mark over your head. So you know when you get an idea and they put a little light bulb over your head? Well, the flinch is like having a question mark there over your head when somebody's asking you what you charge, or you're telling or expressing that to someone. And what happens is when you feel unsure about it, that energy, that feeling is transmitted to, well, the customer who is also thinking about it. Now, this may not be happening on a, conscious level, but subconsciously, this is what's going on, and you're going to want to make sure that you take some steps to change that. Now, another thing that I hear from people when we talk about the flinch is that they don't want the other person or people to think that they're overcharging or that they're somehow being unfair to them. Yeah, so you're making an assumption here. Why in the world would you think that your price is unfair? If you've done the work, if you understand the value that you deliver, and you understand what customers, the ones you're targeting, are really willing to pay, then there should be no question in your mind. Furthermore, there will always be people who think it's too expensive, and there will always be people who think it's too cheap. Yeah. So you need to figure out which end of the spectrum, or where along, maybe you're not playing in the ends, but where in that spectrum is right for you, right for the value you deliver, and right for the people that you're targeting, and go with that and feel confident about it. You have to have that confidence about it. Otherwise, the flinch will come into play and it's going to disrupt your whole process and ability to earn an income. The other thing I hear quite often, the third example I want to give you, is that, well, I think it's too expensive for the client. Well, how dare you? How dare you assume that your client can or cannot afford it? That is a big no. We should never make that assumption. It's almost insulting to the other person that we cast our own judgment about what they are going to, or how they're going to react to this. So let's leave that judgment aside. Let's not even bring it up, quite frankly, and just assume that if this is something that they deem as being absolutely valuable and critical to solving their problem or fulfilling that need, that they're going to choose to find the money somehow. Now, we're not trying to force them to buy something that is overpriced for them or overkill for what they're looking for. What we want to make sure is that the fit is right. And sometimes the best outcome when you're having a discussion with a client about price or about your offer is for them not to work with you. Maybe not right now, maybe later, maybe not even later. But sometimes it's got to be up to them. Not sometimes. It's got to be up to them what is fair, what is valuable. And we have to take ourselves out of the position of judge and jury about what they can or can't afford and let them handle that, because that is truly their decision. So those are 3 examples of what I hear when the flinch is coming into play. Now, there are lots of different aspects, but I wanted to hit on those 3 because those ones are the most common reasons that people are having problems and feeling the flinch when they're asked how much they're charged. So now that you understand what we're talking about, what are you going to do about it? So how do you work with the flinch, or how do you get rid of the flinch? And I tell you, there is one way to get rid of the flinch and one way only, and that is by being fully prepared. You've got to know and understand the value from the customer's perspective. It has to always be from their perspective. Second of all, you've got to get to a place where you feel confident in the prices that you're putting out there. And last of all, you need to also know, and this will help you not only have confidence in your prices, but also be prepared. You have to know how to adapt during these discussions. So if somebody asks you something, think about how you're going to react. Let's look at each 3 of these in a little bit more detail here, right? So the first thing I said is you have to know the value. Now, if you have been watching my show for a while or consuming my content, then you know what I'm about to say. Pricing is only relevant in the context of value, and that is value from the customer's perspective. So value is where it's at. And value, let me just go for a minute here on what value is not. Value is not the beautiful red button that you have on your product. Now, that button may lead to value. So let's say this little red button is a feature. If that little red button saves the customer time, the time that is saved is the value. Let's give an example for service-based businesses. The fact that you have a certification in NLP is a nice feature, but it is not valuable to the customer. What they can get out of the fact that you use NLP to work with them, what they get out of that, the result of using that is where the value comes in. There's a big difference between features, functionalities, certificates that you have, or methods that you use, and value. Functions, features, methodologies, those are not the value in the end. The value is what those things bring to customers. And you have to be able to express that in a way that is right for the people who you're targeting, and in a way that makes, makes sense to them. So we may talk about what we do in one language, but our customers are going to be talking about what they're getting out of it in another. We have to make sure that language is aligned. So you have got to understand the value, not the functions, not the features, not the methods that you use, but the value that actually brings to customers. That is the results. We could even say that's results. And if you've watched my show, then you've also heard me say that tends to be found in 4 areas. How you help them reduce risk, how you help them improve quality, how you help them have economic efficiency, so more money or time, and how you help them create competitive advantages. Those are 4 areas where you can look for that value extraction, is what we call it. So if your red button is the feature, how do you extract value from that? You understand what that red button brings your customers. So first of all, be prepared by really understanding the value. Why is this important? Because then you can focus the discussion with your customers on value rather than price. And this is what we call value selling. So you're focusing the discussion on what they're getting out of it so that they can understand that and use that as the basis for what they decide is the right price. So hello to those of you who have joined me live. Welcome to the show. As I said, if you have any questions, let me know. Second thing you want to do to be prepared is to feel confident about your prices. Now, you may be thinking, hey, Janine, of course I want to feel confident in my prices, but I don't know how. I mean, it's an obvious point to make, of course. How do you feel confident in the prices that you have? Well, the first and foremost, the prices that you have to be related, one, to the value. Second of all, they have to be built, excuse me, they have to be built on something that is actually concrete and relevant. What do I mean by that? If your price is simply versus the competition, that has one level of, say, certainty to it. So you know where you are positioned relative to the rest of the competition. But what you don't know is you don't know, can you be profitable with that price? Is that a price that is good for your customers? There's more that you don't know than you do if that's all you're doing. So you need to base it on the right things. In my opinion, there are 5 elements that are really going to influence your prices: the customer, what you're offering, your pricing strategy, the marketplace, and your profitability. Those are the 5 things. If you're basing your prices on a thorough understanding of those 5 things, then you have very little reason not to feel confident about it. Okay, number 3, the third thing you're going to be doing to be prepared is understand how to adapt during the discussions. So I said all of this is really about preparation. What do I mean by adapting? Well, what we want to do here is we want to have a solution for different scenarios. So if you are offering something and your price is, say, 100 what? Could be 100 whatevers. And the customer says, oh, that's too expensive. Then you want to have thought in advance. Do I have something else that I want to offer them that's at a lower price point? Or do I want to say, you know what, I think that I'm not the person to help you right now. Why don't you check out this? And it could be you send them to your website and free content, or maybe you recommend they go do some other prep work first. It can be different things. Or they say, you know, I love what you have here, but I really want help with this also. So do you have something to offer that helps them with the also? Or do you know someone who you can partner with who will help them with the also? This is what I mean by how do you adapt? If it's too expensive or it's not quite the right fit for someone, you want to be able to adapt to the situation, which means you have to think about what questions you're going to get from people. If you understand the value, going back to the first point here, if you understand the value, then you'll be able to understand what questions you might be getting or what additional value or offers you can make them, right? So this is what I mean by being able to adapt to the situation. In order to do that, you've got to have some idea of your customer and have thought about what different things you might be able to add into the process. So these are the 3 core elements that will help you get more prepared. And the more prepared you are, the less the flinch comes into play. The flinch is almost like, this is going to sound funny, but the big but of pricing. You know, when you're in a conversation with someone, that's a weird statement. When you're in a conversation with someone and they use the word but, you know, like I'm going to do this, but we have this reaction, this flinch, you know, we're kind of unconsciously or subconsciously thinking, oh no, what's coming next? And that's the flinch in play in pricing. When you're asked what you charge and you go, oh no, I'm going to have to say it. What's the reaction going to be? That's the flinch in play. That's the big but of pricing, if you will. Anyways, I got off there. So what's really important here is your ability or your prepared level of preparedness is going to have a direct correlation to how strong that flinch comes into play. Now, it's okay to think, okay, what can I do if they ask for this or if they do that? That's okay to have, but what we want to do is we want to take the flinch out of the equation by being prepared, by understanding your customer, feeling confident that you've done the work to set the prices right, and then having thought in advance a bit about how you could adapt the prices during a conversation with a client. Or if maybe in your business you don't want to have lots of different options, then if you only have one thing and you're only going to offer one thing, then you have to be okay with the fact that for some people the price is going to be right, and for other people it's not. For some it's going to be too low, for others they're going to think it's too high. There's different things at play. You have to be standing in your value and understand that, okay, or say to yourself mentally, okay, I'm okay with capturing the people who are willing to pay this much for what I offer, whether it be a product or service is really irrelevant. So this is what I wanted to talk to you about today, the pricing flinch. Let's just do a quick recap before we sign off for today. So the first thing that we talked about is what is the flinch? And that is this expectation that when somebody asks you what you charge or when you're communicating the price, that the other person or party is going to have a negative reaction. And we looked at why that you might be feeling that way. You might be feeling that way because you're not sure your price is right. Or for example, that it's too much for the customer. So you're assuming that it's more than they're willing to pay, which we said, no, we shouldn't make those assumptions or put those judgments on other people. We also said that it could be because we think that or we don't want them to think that we're charging too much, right? Or that we're being unfair somehow is another example of why that, what we're expecting in terms of that negative reaction that we might get from a client. We said that the solution to this is to get yourself prepared. We said, know the value of what you're offering. It's not the features, the big, beautiful red button on your new product. It's not the methodologies that you use. Maybe you have a new certificate that you're very excited about and you use that in your training. And those are wonderful things, but that is not value. The value is what people get out of it. And it needs to be as concrete as possible. Second, to be prepared, you need to feel confident in those prices because you have done and thought about why your price is what it is. You've done that in a very structured and calculated way. And then last of all, you want to know, in order to be prepared, you want to know how are you going to adapt when things arise, like when the customer says it's too expensive. And I don't mean offering discounts here. I mean adjusting the value of what you're offering so that you can maybe bring something in at a lower price point. Or when they say, I love this, but I also really need this, thinking about what can you offer them in addition to your original offer or instead of, it's even maybe at a higher price point because it has more value. Being able to make that adjustment for yourself and for customers in a conversation will help you feel so much more confident about the pricing conversation itself. That is what I wanted to share with you today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me. I see a couple of you are still here with me watching live, so thank you very much. And to all of you who are going to be watching later, thank you as well. If you'd like to understand more about how to deal with customers who say that's too expensive, you can head on over to my website at JanineListon.com/TEC. I have a video series and checklist there for you called What to Do When Your Customer Says That's Too Expensive. It'll help you understand a little bit more how to do some of these things, especially how to adapt during these conversations. As always, if you want to get in contact with me, you can also book a discovery call right here, JanineListon.com/book discovery call. You'll find all the information there. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to wish you all the best. And as always, enjoy pricing, everyone. Take care.